What's going on, my fellow designers, and welcome back to D-Life HD. This is Victor. Before we start the video, I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. We just reached a new milestone, 500 subscribers, and I'm really excited. We've got lots of new content coming out soon that I'm not going to spoil now, but I just want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed. Today, we're going to be discussing The 9 Monkeys of Shaolin, a beat-em-up on the Nintendo Switch. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it.
Switch, switch, switch it up. Switch, switch, switch it up. I was a worker, had to upgrade to a boss. I had to switch it up. Used to live in the hood, but had to upgrade to a loft. I had to switch it up.
Starting off, let's discuss the game modes. 9 Monkeys of Shaolin is really straightforward. In fact, this whole review is not just a copy and paste of Hades, but I feel like a lot of the concepts apply to what I stated in that video. There is only really one main game mode, and that is the story-focused, beat-em-up linear style of game. Now, there is the option to go online and play with a friend. I did not get the chance to do this because I don't know anyone else who owns this game, but there is also a local multiplayer mode, which allows you to hand a controller to a friend. I did get to try this out, and it works pretty well. So outside of that, that is really as far as the game modes go. Moving right along, let's talk about the UI and graphics. One thing that's really cool about the UI in this game is it's centered around this sort of ancient Chinese text look. So everything kind of feels like a scroll that you might find in an ancient Chinese temple. It's really cool and really adds to the effect and style of the game. The graphics themselves seem relatively cel-shaded. They're not my favorite. In fact, in handheld mode, they look really fuzzy. I think this is one of the weak spots of the game, the graphics. Although I will say, the way everybody feels and looks shorter and kind of chibi, I guess, but not quite. It reminds me of some of the toys that I used to play with when I was a kid. So there is a little bit of sensitive feeling towards that. I mean, maybe it's nostalgia of some kind, but I do like that aspect of the art style. It almost feels like a watercolor painting, in a sense, which I believe was popular in China. So I think that style really adds to the overall feel of the game. Even though the graphics don't particularly shine out, I think the style could be used further if they were to maybe update this game or use something similar with another game down the line. Next, let's talk about the controls and gameplay. This game controls fantastic. I love it. Most beat-em-ups don't really rope me in. I've played some of them on NES, like Double Dragon and River City Ransom, but they've never really roped me in. That's not necessarily my favorite style of game. They always feel really slow and clunky, and I don't know, I've never really clicked with them very well. But 9 Monkeys of Shaolin, in this beat-em-up style, this linear, classic type of arcade feeling, is absolutely fantastic. It's because it leans heavily into the kung fu nature of fighting. Not only that, but you use a bow staff and combine different elemental attacks to fight your opponents. So you're going from one stage to the next, just obliterating all of these warriors that fight against you. You have different types of thrusts and kicks and punches, but combined with that, you have the ability to use a sort of elemental feel to your attack by holding down each attack, and it requires a vessel. I like to think of it as stamina, but this sort of adds to a nature that makes you want to either save your limited amount of vessels that allow you to do these more powerful attacks. Maybe if there's a boss coming up, you want to save them, or maybe you've got a ton of people on you and you just want to obliterate them all at once. It's really nice having that flexibility and planning, so each person can kind of play in their style. I really like the ability to reflect. You can use your bow staff to reflect attacks by other people. Also, you might have enemies that you can't necessarily reach, and they'll use a projectile or an air-based attack. Like, there are people who might pop out from a window and shoot you with a blowpipe, and you can use this reflect using your bow staff to shoot the arrow back at these opponents. The reflect adds a lot of depth to the controls and main gameplay. As I said, the main gameplay is rooted around going from screen to screen, beating up a bunch of enemies, maybe having a short piece of dialogue here and there. But really, it's a room-to-room beat-em-up, a classic arcade style of game. Talking about the music and sound.
There's a riot in the prison, and the guards won't bother figuring out who's who. At least Liu Haibo will be happy that his wine is safe.
The music is relatively straightforward for something that you might see based out of China. You have a lot of classic, traditional Chinese instruments in play. It sounds like something straight out of an old Kung Fu movie, or maybe something more modern like Kung Fu Panda. Honestly, the songs don't feel super deep. They feel like something I've heard a million times, but I will give them some credit. The sound elements of the game are decent. The voice actors are clearly faking a Chinese accent, and it feels a little bit forced. But overall, I think that the voice actors are capable of pushing the narrative along through their voice. Let's discuss the story of the game. The story is not extremely deep. It's a lot similar to the way that Hades works, actually. You're kind of just going on these runs and not really focused around the story, and you might get a piece of story here and there, but I'll give you the root and the setup for the story. You're a fisherman, and your village has been attacked by these thieves and warriors who have burnt it to the ground, and you failed to protect your grandfather. And so you're out on a quest to avenge him and stop the evil forces that destroyed your village. It sounds very classic. I think that's one thing the game really leans into. Sort of these classic stories we might have heard before in other ways, but given to us in a beat-em-up style. So the story isn't extremely deep, and it doesn't really heavily play into the game, but you'll get little minor story beats, like rescuing somebody who will come back to your hub, or doing something like that in between the levels or during the screens that you go in between during these different sections. So overall, the story, which I feel like I've said this quite a few times with games I've played on this channel, doesn't lean extremely heavily into the game, and it's more centered around the gameplay itself, which, as I said before, is very fleshed out and fun. Alright, let's give this a final rating. Now, going forward with my Nintendo Switch reviews, I don't think I'm going to be giving any actual numbered rankings anymore. I've actually heard a couple other YouTubers recently stop doing this, and some of their reasoning and logic behind why I think is extremely smart. And so going forward, I'm just going to give you some final impressions, and I'll let you make your mind up about whether or not you want to play this game. So, if you're into the style of classic beat-em-ups, I highly recommend that you give this game a try, assuming you're okay to put up with a back burner style of narrative and rather muddy visuals. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Let us know down in the comments of this video what you thought. We love talking to you guys. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like these. Also, check the description for a link to our community Discord. We have lots of fun discussion in there and would love to have you. Lastly, check out our Twitter for gameplay on the latest releases. But most importantly, always remember to stay 1-up.